The world of The Promised Neverland is always one of the things that fascinates me the most about this series, and an episode where you're in a demon town is no exception if I'm being honest. Now, I will quickly mention that next week will be a recap episode. It's not an episode that replaces any of the 11 episodes confirmed. It's just because Cloverworks is making 3 anime this season, so they need a production break, and based on the notes that have been circling, it looks like production will be finished very closely to release date, so hopefully the quality doesn't suffer too much, because even in this episode, there was quite a few static shots that held on for quite a while, if I'm being completely honest. This is going to be a show that will be very interesting to review, is probably the nicest way I can say it, because, the comments I'm sure will be something else for the coming episodes, if not the entire series. But from my understanding, I was doing a little bit of research about the arc that has been cut. I think it's called Goldie Pond or something like that, where the kids spend a year in the bunker before they ultimately leave. I guess supposedly, if this is to be believed, the magazine that The Promised Neverland ran in wanted a certain style of arc or a certain style of story around that point, so the author was, I guess, forced to make that arc, which was really well received in the manga community, but I guess the manga author never actually wanted to write it to begin with, so it seems like the anime is the way that The Promised Neverland was going to go if the mangaka had their way from the very beginning. I could be mistaken, but that's from my understanding. This is an anime reviewing channel. We're going to review the anime as the anime. Don't have any experience with the manga, but just since there is so much discussion around it, I just wanted to throw that out there. That's just how I feel. I'm just here to review the anime, and in terms of an anime episode, I really enjoyed it. This was the first episode of Season 2 that I could say the pacing was more rocky than I've seen in the previous episodes. But I also sort of feel like the reason I feel that way is because I have this experience of people shoving it down my throat that there has been an arc cut. Because I've seen so many cases where there has been an escape and then a year or 10 years pass and they go into a new territory. So on one hand, I'm kind of thinking, am I feeling like we skipped out on content because people are saying that, or am I just actually perfectly fine with the year skip? Because personally thinking about it, if they do escape this bunker and then, they're running to a demon town, it's not like they reach their full destination. I think this is more engaging content than, once again, more forest content, so it's hard to say how I feel if I think it, in terms of an anime-only perspective, does it feel rushed or not? Hard to say, but in terms of an episode, it was quite engaging, and the Norman reveal was honestly pretty interesting. I knew the demons that were kind of surrounding them at the end weren't going to completely eat them right then and there, but I wasn't expecting Norman of all characters, even though I knew Norman was going to appear again in the series at some point. I didn't know exactly how, and I'm not sure if that's exactly how it happens in the manga or not, but that's going to be interesting to see not only what happened to him and probably getting some backstory and things like that, but also where this demon town is going to go and what's going to happen when they reach their destination. Something I really like about the theme in this episode is Emma's mental struggle, which I think is something that I wasn't expecting to see in this episode, but it was kind of a welcome surprise. If they've been on the run for 6 months to a year now, based on the demons, they're saying it's been a year. In terms of what the characters have said, they've been in that specific location for around 6 months. And the fact that, they're barely surviving, it sounds like the older kids are pretty much giving their share of the food to the younger kids, but the younger kids are just as worried for them as the older kids are worried for them, right? So it's one of those things where Emma is blaming herself, saying I knew what to expect, but I still feel like I'm failing. And then Ray comes in saying, we're alive because of you. It's one of those little details that you don't always get to see explored as much as this. And when you first see them walking and then they reach this kind of abandoned temple that this one old blind demon visits on the regular, which is a nice source of food, I have to say. It's fascinating to see because you already can tell something's bad. They're doing well, all things considered, but the stew that they're eating, there's a couple of shots where you get to see what's in their bowl. It's mostly liquid, a couple of potatoes, and maybe a couple of herbs and spices. There's not a lot of nutrition there, and it's quite disappointing because that bunker really would have been safe haven for them even if they couldn't bring all the kids there. It's so interesting to see just how much they're struggling mentally and just the anguish that is on characters like Emma in kind of a cliche fashion. When younger kids are saying we want to go with you, things are not going to go according to plan. But at the same time, these are kids who have been trained to survive in this world, so it's not like they were going to be one of those kids who would be they would talk to a stranger demon and that would get them spotted. The idea of them simply being shocked that they're carrying basically it kind of reminded me of the tubes that the heads in Futurama would be kind of chilling in. It has hands, it has heads, feet, whatever else it is, and they just get shocked and get pushed down. it's one of the things that it's not the most original idea, but I don't think it's one of those things where you can look at that specific scene of them being caught saying, oh, it just happened because they're dumb kids. It's more of, oh, that actually kind of shocked them and scared them a little bit, and they, for a brief moment, didn't take into consideration their surroundings. So it's one of those things that I do have to commend the series for. While you knew it was going to happen, I can at least say it didn't happen in the traditional way, which I usually see a kid mess up a situation and turn it into a bloodbath. And we did get a cool chase out of it, so it's not the worst thing ever. To me personally, the worst thing I could say about this episode is on the production side, there was a lot of still shots, and there was a lot of shots that pulled away, and you could tell the production issues were starting to happen. And based on the fact that we have a recap next week, and then based on what production notes have been saying, that the episodes are going to be very close to being finished before release date, it sounds like, yeah, they are going to be struggling because they have Horimiya, they have Wonder Egg Priority, and they have The Promised Neverland Season 2. And by the looks of the production of those shows, Promised Neverland is the one that's currently struggling. But in terms of the content, I enjoyed it. The thing that I still am questioning in my own head, and it'll probably take a couple of episodes to really formulate that for sure. Do I think it's an issue, or is it just me saying because I know something was cut from the original source? But because we know that there is going to be new content written for this story and it is going to be reworked, it sounds to me that this is what the manga author wanted to have happen, and even if you personally don't like that vision, the manga still exists. And I've actually seen some interesting articles and just kind of conversations between different manga readers and stuff like that. There's actually a really good one on Anime News Network saying, like, you know, in a certain way, it's kind of the best of both worlds because you get essentially two versions of the story that hopefully will both be good. If not, there still is the manga, which I honestly completely agree with. It's an unpopular opinion, and I wish it wouldn't be because, you know, I'm just here to try to enjoy an anime. But I understand there's a lot of passionate manga readers who wanted to see this one arc adapted, and I get it completely. It's one of your favorite things. I mean, there's something recently in Attack on Titan as an example that just happened that I was really excited for, and if it didn't happen, yeah, I'd be disappointed, but I personally would still be optimistic to see where they're going to take the story and new content and things like that. So it's one of those things that, like, for me, I'm going to just try to keep looking at the anime, and hopefully I won't have to touch upon the cut content again unless maybe they do something really bad and I'm like, oh yeah, we definitely needed to see that. But for me, honestly, I wouldn't say this was anywhere close to being my favorite episode of Season 2, but the setup and what it leads into for the second half of this story in terms of Season 2's content, I'm really excited for. I mean, Norman as a character and what happened to him, I'm so excited to see what happened there. And I think the idea of now being in a demon town village and just seeing some of the things that has happened, the idea that these lower class demons don't get the top grade meat, and we're seeing starving demons just die out. It's one of those things where it's like kind of putting into perspective that for their society, it literally is no different than cattle that we eat in our own world. And it's quite interesting because it'd be very easy to make this a series that is just these monstrous demons like in the first episode of Season 1, but rather it's just a civilization surviving and a pact that was made on equal terms for both sides. It's very fascinating and I'm interested to see more. Although know everyone's thoughts on this week's episode down below, what did you think? And where do you think it might go with episode 6 in 2 weeks, not next week, because we do have that recap. Let me know. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.